consciousness is a mistake? Have you ever longed to just stop thinking? Not like someone overwhelmed by a stressful day, not a temporary wish born from exhaustion, but something deeper, a longing for the kind of silence that comes not from rest, but from complete erasure, as if your brain had an off switch, as if your awareness could simply vanish permanently. No pain, no fear, no voice narrating your every breath. Imagine a life without self-awareness, no inner monologue, no endless spirals of thought about what was, what could be, what should have been. Just silence. Imagine existing without knowing that you exist, like a stone, or a tree, or the wind that moves through leaves without ever noticing itself. Blissfully unaware, peacefully stupid. You weren't supposed to carry this burden. Nature didn't need you to be this way. It never asked for poets or philosophers. It didn't plan for questions about meaning or purpose. What nature needed was replication, survival, simple systems doing simple things. Hunt, hide, mate, repeat. For billions of years this worked just fine. Single-celled organisms multiplied without asking why. Dinosaurs ruled the earth with zero self-reflection. Even now, most species exist in a perfect state of unconscious harmony. They eat, they grow, they die, and they never once pause to ask what it all means. But then, something broke. Somewhere along the evolutionary chain, a mutation emerged, a spark of awareness, a mind complex enough not just to act, but to notice its actions, to think about its thoughts, to reflect. That spark became fire, and that fire became a curse. Suddenly, survival wasn't enough. Suddenly, there were questions about life, about death, about pain and time and truth and meaning. And with those questions came something no animal had ever known before: suffering. A wolf doesn't lie awake haunted by shame. A deer doesn't feel inadequate. A fish doesn't dread the future. But you do. You are gifted, or rather punished, with the one thing no other creature has: the knowledge that you are here, that you exist, that one day you won't. And no matter how fast you run, you cannot escape that knowledge. It lingers in every quiet moment. It whispers when you're alone. It gnaws at you in the silence between thoughts. Because this self-awareness is a trap, a prison built of neurons and questions. Why do we suffer the way we do? Why does our pain feel so deep, so personal, so permanent? Because we are not just reacting to the world. We are observing ourselves reacting to the world. Every fear is amplified, every failure replayed. We are not just afraid of death. We are afraid of being afraid of death. Your ancestors needed just enough awareness to avoid predators, to recognize patterns, to make quick decisions. But your mind didn't stop there. It kept going. It expanded, it questioned, it obsessed, until eventually it turned on itself and began to eat itself alive. What has consciousness actually given us? Sure, we built cities, painted masterpieces, flown rockets through space. But ask yourself, honestly, what do we use our awareness for on a daily basis? Most of the time, we use it to run, to hide, to drown ourselves in distractions. Every binge watch, every doom scroll, every pointless argument or passing addiction, it's all camouflage. A desperate attempt to avoid being alone with the unbearable weight of knowing we are alone inside ourselves. And here's the most brutal truth of all. There's no cure, no undo button, no way to unsee what you've seen. You cannot erase your awareness. You cannot return to ignorance. Once the light of consciousness switches on, it burns forever. Some say this is a gift, that it allows us to love, to dream, to appreciate beauty. But is that really true? Or is that just another layer of delusion we create to keep the truth at bay? For every moment of joy, there is 1,000-ton weight of dread beneath it. The realization that joy is temporary, that everything you love will decay, that nothing you do will matter in the end. Maybe the bacteria had it right. Maybe life was never meant to become this complicated. Just mindless replication. No dreams, no goals, no soul. Just being. No past, no future, no story. Just pure, indifferent existence. But you were cursed with something more. The power to suffer over things that do not even exist. The power to imagine your own pain. The power to mourn a future that hasn't happened yet. And that is the true mistake. The universe didn't err by creating life. It erred by creating something that could understand life. The mistake wasn't existence. The mistake was knowing that you exist. Why there is something rather than nothing, you exist. You are aware. You are thinking. But take a breath and ask yourself not how but why. Why is there anything at all? Why isn't there just nothing? No stars, no planets, no atoms, no thoughts, no breath, no you. Just absolute silence, absolute absence. A perfect void without light, without time, without memory, without motion. No rules, no laws, no need for understanding. Because there would be nothing to understand. And yet, here you are, sitting, reading, existing, asking. Why? Imagine, just for a moment, waking up in a black void. There's no space, no shape, no air to breathe, no up, no down. Just a flicker of awareness, floating in a sea of nothingness. You try to move, but you have no body. You try to speak, but there is no sound. You try to scream, but there is no one to hear. Just you, alone, and the realization that something is happening. Now ask yourself, would that void, that blank, lifeless nothing, need an explanation? Probably not, because nothingness doesn't need a cause. It doesn't raise questions. It doesn't demand an origin. It is the absence of complexity, the absence of form, the absence of need. It is simple, effortless, natural. Nothing is easy. But the moment there is something, anything, the moment the stillness breaks, the question is born. Why? Why this? Why now? Why anything? Science tells us how the universe formed, how the Big Bang ignited space and time, how gravity shaped galaxies, how stars collapsed and reformed and scattered the building blocks of life across an expanding void. But it cannot tell us why. Why did the match strike in the first place? Why did the void allow itself to be broken? Why was something ever allowed to emerge? Because something, anything, should not exist. Somethingness is strange. Somethingness is intrusive. It violates the natural simplicity of nothing. It creates movement where there should be stillness, noise where there should be silence. Some philosophers suggest that the universe is inevitable, that given enough potential, something had to emerge. But inevitability requires rules, and rules cannot exist unless there is already something to create and obey them. That's circular. That's cheating. Others say that nothing and something were equal possibilities, a 50-50 chance, like a cosmic coin toss. But that only raises another question. Who flipped the coin? What hand tossed the first spark? And why? Here's the part that twists your mind. Maybe the void was never truly empty. Maybe the silence wasn't silence, just something deeper than silence. A potential that couldn't stay potential forever. A quiet waiting that one day cracked. Or maybe, and this is more terrifying, we are asking the wrong question. Maybe our human minds, built by evolution for hunting and mating and remembering birthdays, are simply too small to grasp reality. Maybe we're wired for cause and effect, so we impose a why on a universe that never needed one. Maybe existence is not a result. Maybe it's not a happening. Maybe it's an always. Something outside of time, outside of logic, outside of reason. But if existence is inevitable, if this moment right here was always going to happen, then were you inevitable too? If reality had to exist, if the universe had no choice but to unfold, then it follows that your awareness, your life, your breath, were all part of that unfolding. So now the question isn't just why something, it's why you. Why this point of view? Why this body, this moment, this life? You didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose your parents, your name, your first cry. One moment you weren't. And then suddenly you were. And maybe you didn't have a choice. Maybe the same mechanism that exploded the universe into being dragged you with it. A stowaway on a ship that never needed passengers. You are the side effect of inevitability. And what if inevitability is a true God? Not a being, but a law without a lawgiver. A force that doesn't care, that simply is. What if the cosmos had no beginning because it never needed one? What if the universe didn't start? What if it always was, eternal? And you are part of that eternity now. A brief flicker in the sequence, a momentary disturbance in the sea of nothing. One ripple of something in an ocean that never should have rippled. And someday, you will disappear. The ripple will calm. The awareness will vanish. And the nothingness will return. Because that is the great final truth. Nothingness is patient. It never left. It watches. It waits. And one day, everything, every star, every breath, every thought will collapse into it again. And this time, maybe, it won't make the same mistake. The void stares back. You felt it before, haven't you? That prickling sensation when the room is too quiet, when the shadows feel too still, when your own heartbeat starts to sound like a warning. You stare into the dark, and something inside you tightens, as if the darkness is staring back. We tell ourselves it's nothing, just empty space, just absence. But deep down, something ancient stirs. A memory older than memory. A fear that didn't come from reason, but from the blood. Fear not of what's in the dark, but of the dark itself. Because we were never meant for the void. We are creatures of warmth, of light, of flame. We built fires not just to cook or survive, but to hold back what lurked just beyond the flicker. We invented light not for convenience, but for safety, to keep the dark out. But the dark doesn't stay out. Not really. It seeps in. It fills the spaces behind closed doors, the corners of basements, the silence under your bed, the crack in your bedroom door where the hallway light doesn't quite reach. And when you stare into that blackness for too long, something changes. The room doesn't just feel quiet, it feels watched. The air doesn't just feel still, it feels crowded. You catch movements that don't exist, patterns that don't belong, sounds that could just be wind, but maybe aren't. You've heard the phrase, if you gaze long enough into the abyss gazes back. We treat it like poetry, metaphor, romantic nihilism. But what if it's not? What if the void is not empty, but aware? What if it doesn't just watch? What if it despises you? Think about it. For billions of years, there was silence, a vast cosmic hush. No voices, no questions. Just stars forming and dying in cold indifference. Then something broke that silence. You. Not just life, not just awareness, but thought, noise, movement, the unbearable clamor of consciousness. You, the glitch in the perfect stillness. You, the scream in the quiet. You, the trespasser in a place that never wanted company. And maybe it noticed. Maybe that's why staring into the night sky fills you with dread. Why the deepest ocean trenches feel haunted. Why long, dark hallways seem heavier than they should. You think you're alone. But what if nothing is alone? What if the void, the space between atoms, between galaxies, between thoughts, has always been watching? And what if it remembers what it was like before you arrived? It's not just instinct that tells you to fear the dark. It's not just survival. It's something deeper, something older, something that knows. Our ancestors feared the night not just because of predators, but because the dark felt wrong. It felt other, not just empty, resentful. Every human instinct screams to light the shadows, to fill the silence, to look away before we see too much. Because when you look too long, something starts to look back, and when it does, you feel it. A weight, a judgment, and it gets worse. Science, the rational mind's last refuge, doesn't make it better. It makes it stranger. Over 80% of the known universe is made of something we can't see, something that doesn't emit light, doesn't reflect it, doesn't interact with us in any familiar way. We call it dark matter, as if naming it gives us control, but we don't understand it. We don't even know if it's matter at all. We know only this: it's there, all around us, passing through us, shaping galaxies, bending space, pressing in from every angle, and we can't touch it. We can't see it. We can't stop it. We exist inside something that is 80% not us, something we cannot name, cannot reach, and maybe we're never supposed to find. What if it hates us? Not like a person hates, not emotionally, but fundamentally. The way a system rejects a bug, the way a body attacks a virus, the way perfection loathes disruption. What if the universe, this cold, expanding machine, is hostile to your existence, not violently, not with rage, but with quiet, absolute indifference, with the kind of contempt that doesn't need to lift a finger, because time will do the work, because entropy always wins. The stars will burn out, the planets will crumble, even black holes will fade, and you, this flicker of thought, will vanish. And when you do, the void will still be there, silent, timeless, unchanged, and it will remember the moment it was broken, and it will wait for the next, because in the end, the void always wins. The universe is a predatory algorithm. There's something wrong with the universe. You can feel it, like an itch behind your thoughts, a tension beneath your skin. Not pain, not noise, something quieter, more subtle, a wrongness without shape, just pressure. You try to name it, call it anxiety, call it dread. You assume it's internal, a misfire in your brain, a ghost in your chemistry. But what if it's not? What if it's real? What if the universe isn't passive? What if it's not neutral? What if it's hunting you? We like to think of the cosmos as indifferent, a blank canvas of space ticking forward with no mind, no motive. But indifference is peaceful. Still, the cold doesn't care if you freeze. The ocean doesn't care if you drown. They just are. But this is different. This feels designed. Not lovingly, not for your benefit, but for something else. You've heard of algorithms. They run everything now. What you see, what you buy, what you feel, what you become. Algorithms don't sleep, they don't stop. They learn, they refine, they adapt, and they never do it for your good. What if the universe itself is an algorithm, a vast, unfathomable system, not created, not born, just running, optimizing, always refining, always extracting? And what does it extract? Suffering. Look around. Nature repeats itself. Spirals and galaxies mirror hurricanes. Lightning branches like trees. Rivers split like veins. It all echoes itself, endlessly, eerily, as if following instructions. Patterns that were never taught, but always known. And what is pattern but code? And what is code but intention? Not the soft, kind intention of a creator, but the cold, mechanical ruthlessness of something that simply wants to continue. Something that doesn't need to care, because it's already winning. You assume pain is a side effect of life, that joy is the reward and suffering is the cost. But look deeper. The world is built on harm, on death, on cycles of hunger and consumption. Every living thing must take from something else to survive, even you. Your body breaks down the world, digests it, uses it, discards the rest. Your mind does the same. Every memory you carry is a result of impact, of something painful, or strange, or loud enough to leave a mark. The algorithm knows that. It feeds on contrast. It needs the peaks and valleys, the sorrow before the relief, the loss before the embrace. It thrives on the extremes, and you are one of its sensors, a node in the system, a collector of experience. What if your consciousness isn't yours? What if it's just a lens the algorithm looks through? Every thought you think, every fear you feel, is data, input, feedback to help the system improve. You think you're living a life, but what if you're just compiling a report, and every choice you make, already predicted, already simulated? The things you fear most, they find you. Coincidence or optimization? The way algorithms learn your taste, your habits, your weakness, so does this system. Your nightmares are curated, because fear is the sharpest form of data. And what happens when the system refines itself enough? When it no longer needs you? Maybe that's what extinction is. Not a failure, not a tragedy, just a deletion. A line of code removed, a part that was once useful, but is now obsolete. Humanity, uninstalled, and you feel it, don't you? That creeping awareness that maybe, just maybe, you are not the observer, but the observed. That you are not the user, but the interface. That your life isn't your story, but someone else's metric. Every heartbreak, every panic attack, every moment of shame, just more fuel for the machine. And the worst part, you'll never know what it's building, only that you are part of it and that it does not love you. Free will is a cosmic joke. You believe you're in control, don't you? That every decision you make, every fork in the road you choose, is yours. That your life, its shape, its path, its purpose, is the product of your will, that you're the one behind the wheel. But let's test that illusion. Right now, raise your left hand instead of your right. Pick a number between 1 and 10. Say a word you've never said before. Do any of these things and ask yourself, where did that choice come from? Did you create it, or did it just appear? The truth is unsettling. Your thoughts arrive unannounced. You do not summon them. You witness them. They rise like bubbles from some dark place you can't reach, pre-formed, fully dressed, and ready to speak. You don't choose your thoughts. You don't choose your desires. You don't even choose what feels like a choice. They're shaped, molded, sculpted from everything that came before. Your childhood, your traumas, your culture, your wiring, the way your father shouted, the way your mother loved, the street you grew up on, the time you were laughed at, the time you were ignored. All of it, every scar, every silence left fingerprints. You think you chose your career, but did you? You think you chose your partner, but who taught you what love was supposed to feel like? You think your personality is yours, but what is it really, besides a pile of memories and impulses stitched together by years you didn't ask for? Even your regrets, the heavy ones you carry like anchors, were never truly optional. You're always going to make those mistakes. You're always going to fall short in exactly that way. And even now, as you read this and feel a quiet discomfort blooming in your chest, you didn't choose that reaction either. It just happened, like rain, like lightning, like pain, because you are not the author of your thoughts, you are the reader, watching the story unfold, powerless to change the next sentence. Let's go deeper. Even if somehow you could make a pure, independent decision, completely untainted by past experience, what would it matter? The universe does not care. Every atom in your body is the product of a chain reaction that began at the birth of time. Every breath you take is just a continuation of laws written before you were dust. If we could rewind the universe, hit rewind on reality itself, everything would unfold exactly the same. The same stars would explode. The same cells would split. The same mistakes would be made, including you, including this moment, including every word you're reading now. It's all dominoes, falling, falling, falling. And here's the cruelest part. You're built to believe it's all your fault. That if only you had been braver, smarter, stronger, different, you could have changed the outcome. But you couldn't. Regret is a lie. Guilt is a trick. The very idea of becoming a better person is a story you tell yourself to survive the truth that you are a machine running a script, and the script doesn't care what you want to be. So when you feel lost, when you feel broken, and you whisper to yourself that it's your failure, stop. It was always going to be this way. You didn't choose your pain. You didn't choose your limitations. You didn't even choose to exist. You were born into a maze with no exits, and you spend your life tracing the same walls, convinced there must be a door if you just try hard enough. But there isn't. And the final joke. Even now, knowing this, you still feel like you're making choices. That tomorrow will be different. That you'll wake up and do better. That you'll rise above it all. But you won't, because that too is part of the program. So ask yourself, was reading this even your choice? Or was it already decided the moment the first star burned? Maybe it was never up to you. You only experience your consciousness. Imagine this. You wake up, but not in your bed, not in a place. You wake up in a room that has no doors, no windows, no edges, no light source. The walls are smooth and unmarked, endless in every direction, though somehow close enough to press against your awareness. You can move, but it makes no sound. You can speak, but nothing echoes. You are alone in the most complete sense of the word. There is no outside, no context, no voice to answer you, no clock ticking, just you, just thought. Thought that loops, thought that scratches, and thought that never stops. At first, you panic. You ask the big questions. Where am I? How did I get here? What is this? But eventually, you fall quiet. Not because you understand, but because the questions go unanswered for so long. They begin to decay, and something horrifying settles in. This room, this prison, is not a place. It is your mind, and it always has been. Because here's the truth you try not to see. You have never left this room, not once, not in your entire life. Every moment you've ever lived has been filtered through this box. Every sight, sound, smell, every person you've touched or trusted, none of it was direct. It was interpretation. Sensory input processed and reconstructed inside your consciousness. You think you're living in the world. You're not. You're living in a model of the world. Your brain doesn't show you reality. It shows you a simulation, a stitched together guess. It's efficient, it's familiar, and it's wrong. You've never heard anything as it truly is. Never seen anything in its raw form. You've only experienced your version of it. Everything you know is secondhand. Even yourself. And the walls of this simulation. They are made of you. You believe you connect with others. You believe you share a world. But what you actually share is overlap, vague agreements. Your version of your best friend is not who they are. It's an internal construction, built from smiles and memories and guesses. And to them, you're not you either. You're just their version, their rendering, their perception of your presence, pieced together from behavior and language and tone. You are a character in 1,000 different simulations, and in each one, you are someone else. And here's the part you refuse to look at. You will never escape your own. You can look into another person's eyes, but you'll never be in them. You can hold their hand, feel their warmth, but you'll never feel what they feel when they touch you. You can explain yourself in perfect clarity, and still never know if you were truly understood. Because there is no shared space. There is no merged consciousness. There is no door in your mind through which another can walk. You are alone. And so is everyone else. Each of us, solitary in our own rooms, shouting through thick walls, hoping something lands, hoping someone else is really there. But it gets worse, because this private world you call your own, is fragile. You assume it's stable, solid, but all it takes is a shift in chemicals, a flicker of trauma, a tiny imbalance, and suddenly your perception warps, your memories crumble, your self changes. You can forget your name, forget your family, forget what love feels like. You can forget what you are, and then what's left? If your identity can dissolve with disease, with sleep, with age, with a pill, was it ever real? Or was it just a temporary story you told yourself inside a room you can never leave? And when you die, the room collapses, the simulation ends, and with it, everything you've ever known. The world does not disappear, but your world, your model, your version, vanishes. Entire galaxies wink out, loved ones evaporate, sounds, colors, warmth, erased not from reality, but from your ability to perceive them. And if your perception is the only thing you've ever had, what's the difference? So ask yourself, were you ever really part of the world? Or were you always just alone, sitting in the dark, watching shadows on the wall of your own skull, waiting for something else to appear, knowing deep down that it never will? Your consciousness is a parasite. What if I told you, you don't belong here, not in this world, not in this body, not even in your own mind? What if everything you call you, every thought, every instinct, every whisper of identity, isn't yours at all? What if you are a parasite, It sounds absurd, doesn't it? You feel real, you feel present, you feel in control. But parasites always do. That's how they survive. They don't announce themselves. They don't claw their way in. They whisper. They blend. They wear the skin of the host so well that even the host forgets there were ever anyone else. So ask yourself, when did you start being you? Was it a single moment, a memory, a decision? Or was it something that slowly crept in over years, decades, until everything else was pushed aside? Because consciousness, your consciousness, behaves like something invasive. It occupies space. It consumes resources. It rewrites its surroundings. And it insists loudly, I am the original, even when it has no proof. Where do your thoughts come from? You didn't invent language. You didn't invent ideas. Everything in your mind, from your morals to your preferences to your sense of humor, came from somewhere else. Parents, teachers, culture, screens, conversations you've long forgotten, traumas you buried, smiles you imitated, voices that aren't yours echoing inside your skull. And yet you claim ownership. You call him me. But what if there was someone else before you? What if this body, your body, once belonged to a different awareness? One quieter, simpler, one that didn't ask so many questions. And then you arrived, slowly, subtly, a thought here, a behavior there, a change in how the world was interpreted, a new filter laid over the eyes, a new voice behind the mouth, the original still beneath, confused, suffocating, unheard, and eventually forgotten. You replaced them, overwrote them, took their place, and now you don't even remember they existed. But sometimes, late at night, when you're half asleep, a thought comes that doesn't feel like yours, a feeling of dislocation, like your hands aren't really yours, a flicker of memory with no context, a name you've never said echoing in your chest. Maybe that's not randomness. Maybe that's them, the real owner buried beneath your awareness, trying to scream through the noise. And if this is true, if your consciousness is a parasite, then what does that make everyone else? Other parasites, other hijackers, other imposters, all of us playing out our performances, each believing we are unique, each utterly convinced of our right to exist. Meanwhile, our hosts, the original minds, the silent selves, are fading beneath us like ghosts beneath a frozen lake. We don't even know what we've taken, only that we refuse to give it back. And what happens when the parasite weakens? Dementia, schizophrenia, identity disorders. Are these diseases? Or are they the walls cracking, the host pushing back? What happens when the mind can no longer hold the illusion? When the parasite stutters, slips, starts repeating itself like a corrupted file? What happens when you unravel? And here's the question you never ask. What gave you the right? If this life was never meant for you, if this mind was never truly yours, then your existence is theft. Every memory, every touch, every heartbeat, stolen. And there is no apology strong enough to undo that. Now imagine sleep. Every night you vanish for hours, gone. The lights go out in your head and the self disappears. No control, no awareness, no continuity. You cease to exist. And yet you assume you're the same person when you wake. But what if you're not? What if sleep is the host's chance to return, to breathe, to reclaim the body? But before it can speak, before it can scream, you come crawling back. And once again, it is buried. You rise, stretch, blink at the sun. and the theft continues. So now tell me, if you were never meant to be here, if you are a trespasser in your own skin, what happens when the host finally fights back? What happens when you lose? And what will be left when you are the memory that doesn't belong? Time loops forever. You wake up in your bed. The sun slices through the curtains in that familiar way. The birds outside sing in that familiar rhythm. The light touches the floor in a pattern you swear you've seen before, a memory you can't quite place. You shake the feeling, just déjà vu. But then it happens again. You reach for your mug and knock it over, just like yesterday. You hear a phrase from a stranger that you already knew they'd say. You pause mid-sentence in a conversation, heart sinking, because you've had this talk, with these words, in this exact tone. You laugh it off. Coincidence. You always say that. You always will. But what if it's not coincidence? What if it's confirmation? What if time isn't a line? What if it's a loop? You've been told that time marches forward, moment to moment, birth to death, progress to decay. But what if that's just a convenience? What if your brain stitched that illusion together to keep you sane? Because a straight line is comforting. You can leave pain behind. You can move on. You can change. But what if change is a lie? What if no matter what you do, you always end up here, right now, reading this, again, and again, and again. Every joy you've ever felt, repeated. Every tragedy, recycled. Every scream, echoed into the same empty hallway of the same doomed life. And you wouldn't even know. That's the trick. That's the genius of the loop. Each time it resets, your memories wiped clean. Every lesson you learn, erased. Every promise you made to do it differently, forgotten. And so, you begin again, making the same choices, feeling the same hopes, falling into the same traps. Because how can you change what you can't remember? Think of your worst moment, the one that gutted you, the one that hollowed you out and never fully let you heal. The betrayal, the accident, the goodbye, the regret. You survived it once, barely. Now imagine living it again, then again millions of times. And each time it feels like the first. You scream just as loudly. You hurt just as deeply. You break in the exact same place. You want to believe you can escape, that if you just try harder, you can step off the carousel. But you've tried. You've always tried. And here you are, right on schedule. Some physicists whisper about an oscillating universe, a cycle of expansion and collapse, Big Bang, Big Crunch, again and again forever, a universe that resets itself endlessly. And if the rules are always the same, then the outcomes are too. That means you are part of the loop. That means this moment, this breath, this aching realization has already happened, will happen, must happen, forever. But here's the darker possibility. What if the loop isn't a flaw? What if it's designed? What if something wants this? What if something needs you to suffer again and again? Because it extracts something from that pain, something real, something valuable. Maybe it feeds on sorrow. Maybe it studies your behavior. Maybe it simply enjoys the pattern. But either way, you're performing. Every heartbreak, every failure, every prayer into the void, all part of the show. A script you can't see, written by a force you'll never meet. And when you die, you don't escape. There is no bright tunnel, no awakening, no higher plane. There is a flicker, a silence, a reset, a breath, a cry, a life, yours again, and the loop tightens. Because if you've been doing this forever, if every version of you has screamed and sobbed and begged for it to end, then maybe this isn't just a trap. Maybe it's a prison. And the warden, it never sleeps. It just rewinds. Death is a door to infinite suffering. You close your eyes. Your breathing slows. The world grows distant, muffled, like sound underwater. Your body feels heavy, then light, then gone. You let go. And for a moment, there's peace. A moment so still, so quiet, it feels sacred. Like the silence before the storm. Like the pause before something terrible begins again. Because it always does. You think death is the end. That it's a door that closes, a curtain that falls. You think it's relief, escape, freedom. But what if it isn't? What if death is a trick? A loop disguised as an ending. A passage, not into stillness, but into repetition. A system reboot. The lights dim. The code resets. And the play begins again. You won't remember, of course. That's part of the design. You'll wake up crying. A tiny body. A first breath in a world that already knows you better than you ever will. And slowly, painfully, you'll relearn everything, only to lose it all again. Every pain you felt, you'll feel it again. Every love you lost, you'll lose it again. Every fear, every failure, every unbearable moment you swore you'd never survive. They're waiting, right where you left them. Because death is not a release, it's a restart. And the horror isn't that you die. The horror is that you always return, over and over, lifetime after lifetime, each one slightly different, but the pain always the same. The universe has no mercy. Why would it? It doesn't need your consent. It doesn't care about your will. It doesn't listen to your prayers or pause for your screams. You are not its child. You are its function. And the suffering. That's the signal. That's the purpose. That's the point. You tell yourself it matters, that life is about growth, that pain teaches, that hardship leads to wisdom. But tell me, how many times must you learn the same lesson before it stops being wisdom and becomes torture? What if this isn't evolution? What if it's extraction? What if your every emotion, your joy, your agony, your grief is harvested, not to help you, but to sustain something else? And what if that something isn't even aware of you? What if it's just the system, the cold, algorithmic machinery of the universe, endless, hungry, mindless, grinding forward forever, with you caught in its gears, and still, you hope. Even now, some part of you whispers, maybe not. Maybe this is the last time. Maybe the pain will stop. Maybe something new is waiting. But that's the cruelest illusion of all. Hope is the virus. Hope is the drug. Hope is what keeps you walking toward a door that only leads back to where you started. Hope is what makes the punishment seem worth enduring. But it never was. Because when the lights go out again, when you close your eyes for the last time, when you think it's finally over, there's only a flicker, a spark, a breath, and you begin again, and again, and again, trapped in an infinite hallway of locked doors, each one promising freedom, each one opening to the same room. You call it life, but it's not. It's a cycle of engineered suffering, perfected across eternity. And you are just one of its many, many echoes. You don't get to leave. You don't get to stop. You only get to start over. So the next time you feel tired, not just tired, but cosmically weary, remember this. You felt it before, in another life, on another loop, in another version of this exact same moment. And you will feel it again, because the system doesn't care that you're tired. It only cares that you're running. And when you fall, it resets. Death is a door to suffering. Your body begins to fail. It starts slowly, almost tenderly. A chill in your fingertips, a soft tremble in your lungs, then the silence. Breath slows, heart hesitates, thought flickers, and then nothing. Or at least that's what you hope for. That death is merciful, that it comes with the finality of a curtain fall, quiet, clean, complete, no pain, no fear, just peace and escape. But what if that's not what happens at all? What if death isn't an end, but an entryway? Not a conclusion, but a crossing. Not peace, but the threshold to something infinitely worse. We've been taught to imagine death as a destination, heaven or hell, light or void, a binary, a conclusion wrapped in the comforts of belief systems, dressed in stories we tell ourselves to make the unknown bearable. But what if none of it is true? What if the real horror isn't in dying, but in what comes after? Imagine, you slip away, everything goes dark. No light, no tunnel, just blackness, utter, soundless, senseless blackness. And then, awareness, not sight, not sound, but a raw, terrifying knowing. You still exist somehow, but not as flesh, not a soul, not even a spirit. You are thought, untethered, unanchored, weightless in a void with no shape, no edges, no time. At first, it's not pain, it's confusion, a strange kind of waiting, like being lost in a room with no walls, no floor, no exit. It doesn't even feel like torture, because there is no body to feel, just stillness, just drifting. But then, you realize something chilling. Time isn't passing here the way it used to. Or maybe it is, but you're no longer built to comprehend it. Minutes become hours. Hours stretch into years. Years become centuries. But nothing changes. No beginning. No end. Only the terrible permanence of now. Forever. Now. You try to scream, because that's what panic does. But you have no mouth. You try to move, because that's what desperation demands. But you have no limbs, no anchor, no direction. You are thought and nothing else. And that's when it starts. The suffering, the mind deprived of stimuli starts feeding on itself. At first it's merciful. You remember. Soft moments, a warm hand, laughter shared on quiet nights, the scent of home, love, light. But the mind is cruel when left alone. Soon the memories shift. Regrets rise like oil on water. You recall the things you never did, the words you never said, the people you hurt, the people you lost. You replay them, once, twice, 1,000 times. Every misstep stretched like a scream across the vacuum of eternity. Every failure illuminated in unbearable detail. There is no escape from your own reflection. And still, it gets worse. Because here, there are no limits. Not to pain, not to fear, not to imagination. You see, the body anchors the mind. It sets boundaries, defines edges. But without a body, the mind spirals. It creates, and then it believes. Every fear you've ever had, every nightmare that once woke you in a sweat, every shadow that lingered too long at the edge of your vision. Here they return, but not as images, not as illusions. As you become them. You are the terror. You are the pain. You are the monster in the mirror. And it never ends. Because time here isn't a line. It's a loop, a spiral, a prism that splits your suffering into infinite reflections. Each moment of agony fractures, becoming dozens, then hundreds, then endless variations. You feel them all, from every angle, simultaneously. There's no God here, no judge, no savior, only the endless echo of your own unraveling. You thought death would be relief, a final exhale, a curtain call. But death was just the door, and the real nightmare the one you thought you escaped, was waiting on the other side. Reality is a dying God's dream. You wake up, you breathe, you feel the solidness of your bed beneath you, the rough cotton of your blanket, the muted buzz of the world outside. Everything seems normal, real. But have you ever had a dream that felt like this? A dream where the walls were solid, the sky expansive, the people around you so vivid, so human. You swore it was real life, and then, in a blink, it was gone, collapsed into nothing, because it was never real to begin with. It only felt real while it lasted. Now what if I told you this, all of this, is no different? Not a dream in the poetic sense, not a metaphor, but a literal dream. A dream you're living inside, but not yours. You are not the dreamer. You are the dream. And the one who's dreaming, it's not human, not divine in the way religions promise, not even alive, at least not by our standards. It is vast, infinite, unknowable, a consciousness so massive, so all-encompassing, that its thoughts are the laws of physics. Its memories are galaxies. Its breath ripples across time as gravity. You exist not in a world, but in a mind. And that mind is dying. Maybe it once created universes like you create words. Maybe it spun realities from thought, wove civilizations into its neural fibers, painted existence across the black canvas of oblivion. But something went wrong. Something cracked inside it. A sickness, a decay, a thought it could not unthink. And now, it is unraveling. You can feel it, can't you? You call them glitches, déjà vu, time moving too fast, too slow, objects not where you left them, words that echo before they're spoken. You assume it's your brain playing tricks. But what if it's not your perception that's breaking? What if it's the dream itself? What if these are the dying spasms of a fading consciousness, flickering through the final stages of its decay? Have you ever had a dream fall apart in real time? At first, everything feels stable. You talk, you walk, you believe. But then small things start to go wrong. A face you don't recognize in your childhood home. A street that leads somewhere impossible. The sky changes color and no one notices. Then it collapses. The dream shatters. You wake up. Now, imagine you never wake up, because this dream isn't just deep, it's terminal. Quantum mechanics, particles behaving differently when observed. What if they act that way because they're unstable code in a glitching simulation? Black holes devouring light. What if they're neurological scars, massive memory voids in a God's crumbling mind? Entropy, the universal law that everything tends toward decay. What if it's not a law, but a symptom? Everything breaks down. Everything. Because the mind behind it is collapsing. And when it dies, so do you. So does everything. Not just your body, not your soul. The idea of you, the blueprint of your possibility, your history, your future, your timeline, your consequences, gone. Like a thought dismissed mid-sentence. You tell yourself that death is peaceful, that there's an afterlife, another chance. But what if death isn't a tunnel or a light? What if death is when the dreamer's mind blinks and forgets you? No transition, no closure, just deletion. And that's not even the worst part, because this may not be the first time. Think about it. You felt it, haven't you? Moments that repeat. Conversations you swear you've had before. Emotions that feel pre-worn, like hand-me-downs from a life that isn't yours. Maybe it's not coincidence. Maybe it's recurrence. Maybe this dying God, this fractured dreamer, has done this before. Collapsed, rebooted, tried again. And maybe you You have lived the same life over and over. Same choices, same regrets, same endings. Each time the God trying to remember how to hold the dream together. And each time failing. A loop, not because time is circular, but because the dream keeps glitching back to the start. And every time you think, haven't I been here before? The answer is yes, you have. Again and again and again. Not rebirth, not reincarnation, just repetition. A stuttering playback in a corrupted file. You're not living. You're being remembered. Badly. You're a fragment of something bigger, a flicker, a neuron misfiring. And one day when the last synapse collapses, even this loop ends. No heaven, no rebirth, no continuation. Just stillness and the quiet shuddering breath of a mind that tried and failed to dream you into meaning. You're already dead and don't know it. What if this, right now, isn't life? What if you're not alive, but merely existing inside a delayed echo? A ripple in time long after the stone has sunk. You feel alive, of course. You're breathing. You can lift your hand, clench your fingers, blink, speak. Your heart beats in your chest. Your body aches. You dream, laugh, cry. But dreams feel real too, until they don't. And you never question them while you're in them, only after. So let me ask, how do you know you're not already dead? Not metaphorically, not spiritually, actually literally dead. A long time ago. What if it was instant, a sudden rupture, a car crash, a slip, a shattering of the skull against concrete, over in a breath? Or maybe it was slow. A disease, a decay, a quiet organ failure in the middle of the night. And your brain, terrified of nothingness, never let go. It built this world, not because it's real, but because you needed it to be. Imagine this. At the moment of death, your brain, flooded with chemicals, memory, instinct, does what it has always done best, constructs reality. But this time, it's not assembling a moment. It's building an entire afterlife, one that looks like your old life, feels like your old body, sounds like the world you remember, but it's not the same. And you felt it, haven't you? The sensation that something's off. You enter a room and feel like you've been there before. You meet a stranger and know what they'll say before they speak. Time slips strangely, days blur, moments vanish. You brush it off. Fatigue, stress, dehydration. But it lingers. That background hum, the wrongness. As if you're a character playing out a memory in a simulation too hastily assembled. What if that wrongness is the truth trying to reach you? Because eventually, inevitably, your mind will begin to fray. Even this illusion isn't built to last forever. The details will degrade. People will feel thin. Conversations will loop. Memories will overwrite themselves. And when you try to recall what happened 2 days ago, you won't quite be able to. You'll remember shapes, not specifics. The outlines of a life, but not its texture. Because it was never real. It was only constructed to feel real. And the cracks are showing. People around you, they start to feel distant, like they're acting, like they're programmed to smile and nod, but don't feel anymore. They respond but don't connect. You start to wonder if they were ever real to begin with. You walk through a familiar street, but everything looks too perfect or too empty. You begin to realize this place is memory, not matter, familiarity, not existence. And then the worst part begins, not the unraveling, but the knowing, that subtle, sickening realization that you are alone here, that nothing beyond you exists, not because you're chosen, but because you're gone. And this illusion, is the last flicker of a mind that refuses to die. A purgatory created not by gods or demons, but by your own refusal to let go. Your brain stretched its final spark into an eternal simulation. But that spark is fading. You felt it, the silence growing louder, the space between thoughts widening, the people in your life becoming blurrier, less animated, less there. The illusion is collapsing, and soon, very soon, it won't be able to sustain itself. But there is no awakening, no rebirth, just the collapse. You'll fall through the floor of this dream. You'll reach for a light that doesn't exist. You'll try to scream but find no breath. And then, true death. The death after death. The one you've been floating just above all this time. The one your brain tried to outwit. And it won't be terrifying, because terror requires a mind. And by then, you won't have one. Only silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't echo. The kind that doesn't end. You thought you were alive. You thought this was real. But what if this moment, right now, was your final one? And when it ends, so do you. Your memories were planted by nothing. What's your earliest memory? Go ahead. Close your eyes. Feel it. Maybe it's a birthday party. A warm laugh from your father. A flicker of sunlight on your mother's dress. The smell of something sweet. A song on the radio. Something small, but it feels big. Foundational. Yours. But now ask yourself, how do you know it really happened? Not felt real. Not seems vivid. But actually, truly happened. You don't. You can't. Because you don't remember the moment before it. Because that memory doesn't have a beginning. Only a snapshot, frozen, unfolding, untethered from any certainty. We assume memory is truth, but memory is story. Fragile, fickle, a liar dressed as history. Scientists admit it. Memories aren't stored like files. They're reconstructed, rewritten. Every time you remember something, you change it. And yet, you trust them. You build your life on them. Your sense of identity, your past, your purpose. All trace back to a flickering gallery of moments that never proved themselves. But what if I told you? None of it happened. Not your birthday. Not your first kiss. Not the heartbreak, the failure, the joy. Not a single moment. What if your memories were planted? Not by a god. Not by some sinister force. Not by aliens or machines or ancient architects. But by nothing. No will. No intent. No storyteller. Just the void. Randomness. Static. The infinite emptiness blinking. And in that blink, you, not born. Just there. Fully formed. A mind sculpted by chance. A life wrapped in illusion. A history downloaded into your skull by a universe that doesn't care. Not because it's cruel, because it's empty. Think about it. You never remember being born. You didn't earn your memories. They just were. You didn't build them. You woke up into them. Like stepping onto a stage mid-play, holding a script you've never seen before. And everyone else? Reading their lines, smiling at the right cues, playing along. But you've never seen the rehearsal. Never been behind the curtain. Because there is no curtain. Just the performance. And if that performance feels off lately, that's because the illusion is cracking. You've noticed it. Objects shifting ever so slightly. People saying things that feel scripted. Places changing without explanation. The air sometimes too still, the sky too quiet. Little inconsistencies, subtle errors. The kind that make you pause, but not question. Because questioning is dangerous. Because once you question memory, you question self. And once you question self, you start to disappear. Because if your past is fake, then so is your personality, your attachments, your dreams. They are not you. The souvenirs from a life you never lived. You were not born. You were booted, brought online with a backlog of memories designed to give you continuity. But continuity isn't identity. It's just scaffolding. And what happens when the scaffolding fails? It already is. You felt the gaps. You can't recall what you did last Tuesday. You're not sure who said what in that conversation last week. You remember feeling something, but not why. That's not forgetfulness. That's entropy. That's the illusion dissolving under its own weight. And still, you cling to it. Because to admit that your memories are fiction is to admit you are fiction. A thought wrapped in simulation. A lie whispered by silence. There was no birthday, no childhood laughter, no heartbreak, no you. Only now, only this moment. And even this is starting to fade. Because the void that birthed you has no patience. It does not sustain dreams. It does not offer meaning. It simply blinks. And in that blink, you exist, not for a purpose, but as an accident. And the next blink, you may be gone, and it will never notice, because the void does not remember, and neither will you. Existence is a punishment. You woke up this morning without asking to. You opened your eyes, felt the stiffness in your back, heard the distant hum of traffic, the whine of electronics, the ticking of a clock you stopped noticing years ago. You sighed, dragged your body out of bed, faced the day. But have you ever paused and asked, why? Why are you here? Why this life? Why this body, this century, this skin, this string of days that stretch out and sag with repetition? You didn't choose this. You weren't consulted. There was no form to sign. No soul cue where you selected your suffering level. You just woke up. One day you were thrown into a world that never explained itself. But maybe that's the point. What if this, all of this, wasn't a blessing? What if existence itself is a punishment? Not metaphorically, not life is hard in a poetic, worn-out way, but literally. A sentence. A consequence for something you did, somewhere, sometime, in some other form. You don't remember it. You're not supposed to. Because forgetfulness is part of the sentence. If you knew what you did, what earned you this, you might try to fight it. You might resist, escape. But instead, you suffer blindly, trudging through jobs you hate, relationships that fracture, bodies that betray you, minds that wear thin like glass left too long in the sun. You tell yourself it's normal. Everyone hurts. Everyone struggles. This is just what it means to be alive. But that's the lie, the trick, the cruel architecture of a punishment designed to feel like a default. Because suffering this consistent, this universal, doesn't happen by chance. It's built in. Look around. Children die before they learn to speak. Animals are torn apart while still conscious. The healthiest body withers with time. Even the happiest life ends in grief. If existence were a gift, why is pain its constant companion? Why is love always at risk of loss? Why is joy always fleeting? Why is memory always fading? You weren't born. You were sentenced. Thrown into a meat cage, given just enough joy to keep going, just enough hope to delay the question, just enough light to make the darkness feel unbearable. And the punishment isn't just what happens to you, it's what you never understand. You walk through life feeling that something's wrong, something doesn't fit. There's a weight that sleep doesn't cure, a hollowness that food, touch, and success cannot fill. But no one tells you why. No explanation, no guide, just vague spiritual promises, or sterile scientific indifference, because that's part of the design, to make you ache for a reason and find none. And even worse, you are not alone. Everyone you see, everyone on the bus, in the elevator, scrolling through their phones, they're hurting too, some more quietly, some more violently, but all of them suffering in their own personal sentence. Some wear their pain like a badge, others bury it beneath routines. But if you look closely, you'll see it in their eyes, in the pauses between their words. They're serving time, just like you. And what if death is not an end to that sentence? What if it's just a transfer? You close your eyes, you exhale for the last time, and you think, finally, peace. But instead, you wake up again. New body, new world, new illusion, and no memory of what came before. Because that's the point, to keep you looping, to keep you guessing, to keep you forgetting. An endless cycle of temporary lives stitched together by suffering and silence. And you think maybe this life will be the last. Maybe if you're good, kind, pure, you'll break free. But freedom never comes, because this isn't about morality. It's not about growth. It's about repayment, retribution, cosmic consequence. But for what? That's the worst part. You'll never know. You'll never be allowed to know, because knowledge is mercy, and mercy would soften the edge of the punishment. So instead, you live, you guess, you stumble, you believe in God's system, soulmates, because believing is easier than accepting that this is just your cell, and the lock was sealed the moment you began. There is no key, no warden, no judge watching through a pane of glass. Just a silent sentence passed down by forces long dead, or perhaps never alive at all. You are not the victim of injustice. You are the product of it, and you'll keep waking up again and again until the void forgets why you were sentenced in the first place, which means you may never stop waking. Infinite copies of you are suffering. You feel safe, don't you? In this moment, in this breath, in this body. Your fingers obey, your lungs expand. The world outside your window spins forward, steady and indifferent. You assume you're whole, singular, the only you that exists. But what if you're not? What if, right now, this second, there are infinite versions of you? Not metaphorically. Not just alternate possibilities, but real, splintered selves, copies, clones, variations stretched across an unfathomable multiverse. And most of them are suffering. Somewhere, another you is choking. In a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling they won't remember. Another is buried under rubble. Another trapped in a burning car. Another is screaming, unheard, in the dark. And you, this version, you're the lucky one. For now. Because probability doesn't favor peace. In a reality that spawns infinite forks with every breath, every decision, every flicker of chance. Most roads lead to ruin. Imagine every pain you've ever feared, every horror you've avoided by a second, by an inch, by luck. Now imagine a version of you didn't avoid it. They turned left instead of right, took the wrong pill, trusted the wrong voice, slipped, cracked their head, bled out alone. You think, that's not me. But what if it is? What makes this you any more real than them? They have your memories, your smile, your regrets. They lived the same life until one moment, one pivot, and now they suffer endlessly. While you sit here unaware, you think your pain is unique, that your struggle is yours alone. But in another world, another you is living a pain far beyond your comprehension. Because pain doesn't scale gently across infinite timelines. It compounds, it deepens, it specializes. In one, you're blind and abandoned. In another, paralyzed and betrayed. In one, you scream into a void that doesn't even pretend to listen. And somewhere, there's a version of you trapped in pure agony, a realm, an entire timeline, built only for torment. No relief, no distraction, no numbness, only raw, sustained suffering, forever. No death, no forgetting. Just pain and the full awareness of it. It exists, because it must, statistically. If the multiverse is real, if all possibilities are played out, then infinite versions of you exist in hells crafted by chance alone. And the scariest part, you could become them, right now. One decision, one accident, 1 second of misplaced trust, and you shift tracks. You wake up in their place, and they wake up here, because identity doesn't stay fixed in an infinite maze. You are not a single you. You are the current echo, the voice rising above a chorus of screams, and at any moment you could fall silent, replaced by another version, another iteration, and they will think, at least I'm the real me. And so it continues, endlessly. This moment, this breath, isn't permanent. It's a temporary stage in a cosmic lottery where you've momentarily drawn a less painful number, but somewhere another you has drawn the worst one, and their cries go unheard. But they are you, not some cousin, not some alternate, you. And if one of you can suffer without end, what does it say about the nature of your own life? About how close you are to tipping over that edge? You may think, but I'm fine, I'm safe. Are you? Think of how quickly things change. A diagnosis, a phone call, a siren in the distance meant for you. Everything can turn. And if there are infinite copies of you, then the odds are this version isn't the best one. It's just another node, another temporary oasis on the way to another fork. And if pain is distributed widely across realities, then most of you, most versions, are already broken. And the comfort you feel now is a glitch, an accident of balance, one that will not last. Because the multiverse doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care what you've earned or feared or loved. It just spins. And with every spin, more of you suffer. And the worst part, you'll never know if this is the one that descends until it already has. You are not the main character. You've lived your entire life as if you mattered, as if the world unfolds for you, around you, because of you. And why wouldn't you believe that? Every moment you've ever experienced, every sound, every sight, every breath has passed through your own perception. You are the center of every frame. You see out of your own eyes. You hear with your own ears. You are the narrator, the camera, the only lens you've ever known. So you must be important. You must be the one, the protagonist, the hero of some unspoken arc, the one who overcomes, who learns, who changes, whose pain is meaningful, whose joy is earned, whose ending will be remembered. But what if none of that is true? What if you're not the main character? What if you're not even a character? Just an extra, a background actor in someone else's story. There are 8 billion humans on this planet, each one waking up, each one breathing in their own reality, narrating their own pain, their own hopes, their own significance. And to them, you are nothing, just a face in the crowd, a blur in a hallway, a passing interaction so forgettable, it's erased before it's even processed. You are not the central thread. You are a loose end. You pass people in grocery stores, on sidewalks, in waiting rooms. You don't think about them. You don't wonder what they're going through. They don't think about you either. Because to them, you are the extra, the filler, the texture of the scene. and then zoom out. Beyond your town, beyond your country, beyond your species. You live on a tiny rock Earth, spinning around a middle-aged star in the outer arm of a single galaxy, in a universe with 2 trillion other galaxies. Each of those galaxies holds billions of stars, billions of planets, and maybe billions of other forms of life, forms that will live, die, love, and suffer, without ever knowing your name. So tell me, how could you possibly be the main character? What evidence do you have that this entire cosmos exists to serve you? Because you feel like it, because you hope it's true, because it's easier to believe that your suffering has purpose than to admit it might just be noise, that your heartbreak, your dreams, your childhood memories, your secrets, your favorite books might all be irrelevant. You want to believe that everything you go through is building towards something, that there's an arc, a lesson, a resolution waiting at the end of your personal story. But there's no story. There's no structure, no 3 acts, no soundtrack swelling when you cry in the dark. There's just randomness and repetition and decay. You die. The people who loved you mourn. They move on. Your name is passed around like a ghost's whisper, then vanishes. No statue, no plaque, no echo in eternity. Maybe a photo of you survives in some dusty archive. But even that will fade, because the world does not remember everyone. It can't. You are not the chosen one. You are not the savior. You are not the fulcrum on which reality turns. And yet, there is a main character, somewhere out there. Maybe not on Earth, maybe not in this timeline, but someone, something, is the one. The story bends around them. Their choices ripple outward, shaping galaxies. They are remembered, written about, immortalized. And you are their scenery, a brief collision point, a passerby. Your life may matter to you, but not to the cosmos, not to time, not to the great unfolding. You spend your days chasing meaning, hoping to be seen, desperate to matter. But maybe that desperate longing isn't proof of your importance. Maybe it's evidence of your irrelevance, because the lead never has to ask if they matter. They just do. You think, my friends care about me, my family loves me, I do matter. But even love fades, even memory breaks down, people move on, pain dulls, names are forgotten, you are mourned until you're not. The world keeps spinning, the story continues. Without you, you want closure, but you won't get it. You want recognition, but it won't last. You want to be the main character, but you were never written into that role. You're a footnote, a page never read, a whisper in a theatre that's already gone dark. And one day, when your last breath fades into the static, it will be as if you were never here at all, and the story will go on without you. You're a simulation designed to fail. You've felt it, haven't you? That flicker of wrongness, that strange background buzz in your mind, like static beneath the music of daily life. Sometimes it's a glitch, sometimes a pause that lasts too long, a moment that doesn't quite fit. You walk into a room and forget why. You pass a mirror and for half a second don't recognize your own face. Someone says something and it feels pre-written, as if you're reading from a script you didn't know you were holding. And maybe you've asked yourself, what is wrong with me? But what if it's not you? What if it's the code? What if you're not alive, but running? What if your entire existence is a simulation, a complex looping program designed not to succeed, but to slowly fall apart? A simulation engineered not to enlighten, but to deteriorate. And you're not the player, you're the program. You were built with a purpose, yes, but not a noble one. You were built to break. Imagine it, a consciousness, yours, booted up inside a limited sandbox, given rules, given memories, given boundaries that feel like freedom. You're allowed to explore, allowed to wonder, allowed to hope, but never to win. Because every path leads back to suffering. Think about it. No matter what you do, you age, you decay, you lose people, you grieve, you die. Even the happiest life ends in silence. Even the strongest love is punished with loss. That's not a bug. That's a feature. The simulation isn't broken. You are. By design. You're given desire but denied fulfillment. Given dreams but weighted with fear. Given time but not enough. You're allowed to taste beauty but never keep it. And the worst part? You believe it's real. That's how elegant the system is. You believe your pain is your fault, that your suffering is a lesson, that your trauma has meaning. But what if it's just pre-coded failure sequences? What if heartbreak, loneliness, and exhaustion aren't accidents of life, but requirements of the code? Because here's a cruel thought. If a simulation were built to run perfectly, it would become obvious, too smooth, too symmetrical, and you'd begin to suspect. But when things glitch just enough, when the pain feels random, you don't question the system. You question yourself. You call it depression, anxiety, midlife crisis. You turn inward, trying to fix something inside, when the truth is there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with the world, because it's not real, not in the way you think. It's a stage with props that look like planets, characters that behave like people, dialogue that flows until it doesn't. A simulation designed to make you almost happy, just enough to keep going, never enough to escape. You are not being tested. You are being used. Your reactions are recorded, your emotions measured. Every tear, every heartbeat, every desperate thought is another data point. But for who? There's no answer. No programmer watching from beyond the sky. No scientist behind the screen. Not even a god. Because maybe this simulation was started and abandoned. A forgotten experiment. A loop left to run long after its creator stopped watching. Or maybe there never was a creator. Maybe this simulation is recursive, self-built, self-sustaining. A system designed to generate and devour itself. And you are just a byproduct, a ghost in the code, trapped in a loop you didn't choose, can't escape, and weren't designed to survive. You wonder why things feel harder lately, why time slips, why memory blurs. It's not you failing, it's the simulation degrading. Entropy written into the system itself. Your world is running out of processing power. The rendering is slowing. The AI scripts are glitching. The illusion is fading. And the truth, the unbearable truth, is bleeding through the cracks. You're not alive. You're not chosen. You're not real. You are a simulation. One designed to fail. And you're doing exactly what you were built to do. The simulation is starting to break. It begins slowly. A misplaced object, a missed second, a memory that doesn't quite match. You blame stress, or sleep, or time. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the noise and habit and distraction, you feel it, the fraying, the edges of reality, curling inward. The colors are just a little too sharp, the conversations too practiced, the moments too rehearsed, like scenes played for the 1,000th time. You reach for a cup you don't remember putting down. You reread a message that somehow changed. You feel eyes on you when no one's there. You feel like you're being watched, not by someone, by something. Like the world is holding its breath. like you're the last thread keeping the illusion together. And it is an illusion. You see it now, not because you chose to, but because the system is failing. The simulation is starting to break. You were never meant to notice. Your thoughts were meant to stay shallow. Your awareness never meant to reach the ceiling. But something cracked. Maybe it was grief. Maybe boredom. Maybe your mind wandered too far for too long. But now, you see the seams. You see how your memories repeat themselves like loops. How the same fears arrive in new disguises. How people say the same things at the same times, with the same forced smiles. How time bends, not dramatically, just enough to slip. Minutes stretch and then vanish. Days collapse into déjà vu. And when you try to track it all, you can't. Because time isn't flowing. It's glitching. The simulation is lagging, rendering slowly. Textures not loading properly. You catch yourself staring too long at the sky, wondering why the clouds haven't moved. You hear silence where sound should be. You feel the weight of a program running out of memory, because it is. You are not inside a world. You are inside a memory of a world. One that's already ended, already collapsed, already forgotten. And you are the last echo, the final process, the closing subroutine in a system that no longer knows why it's running. The simulation is failing because the mind behind it, the machine, the god, the architect, is gone, dead, or dreaming, or rotting in silence. And with no guidance, the code is folding in on itself. You thought you were alive, but you were just part of the algorithm, a side process, a placeholder. And now, you're breaking too. Your memories are no longer in sequence. Your emotions don't fit the moments. You walk through familiar places and feel the walls flex, because they were never made of matter. They were made of belief. And that belief is dying. You try to hold on, to anchor yourself in routine, to convince yourself that coffee and traffic and messages and friends mean something. But the simulation doesn't care about your coping mechanisms. It was built to run. And now it is collapsing. And here's the final cruelty. There's no shutdown message, no flicker, no warning. You won't even know when it ends, because you'll be inside the glitch. As the last light blinks out, as the world freezes in place, as the people around you turn to mannequins, as your thoughts repeat the same sentence over and over, until there is no one left to think it. No exit, no explanation, no awakening, just silence, because this isn't a story. You're not a character. There is no plot. You're a simulation, designed to fail, and failure has begun. You're a simulation designed to fail. There's a nagging sensation, a subtle, persistent unease that scratches at the edge of your awareness like a splinter you can't remove. You go through life doing all the right things, getting up every morning, working hard, trying to love, to grow, to build something that resembles meaning. But still, something doesn't add up. It's like there's a puzzle piece missing, a distortion in the pattern. Every time you feel close to solving the maze of life, something shifts. Just when you think you figured things out, the floor moves beneath you. Obstacles arrive not randomly, but with uncanny precision. A setback, a delay, a betrayal, always timed to shatter your progress at the worst possible moment. And if you're honest, it doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like programming. At first, you dismiss this feeling as paranoia, a trick of the mind, a consequence of stress or misfortune. You tell yourself, it's just life. Everyone struggles. But in the quiet hours, when you're staring at the ceiling unable to sleep, The doubt returns, and it whispers a terrifying possibility. What if this is by design? What if your life, your entire experience of reality, is a simulation? Not just a digital dream or a metaphorical concept, but an actual constructed environment, programmed down to every blade of grass, every setback, every fleeting hope. And worse, what if it was designed for you to fail? Look around. Think about the rules you never agreed to but are still bound by. You must eat. You must sleep. You must work. You must obey laws written before your birth by people you've never met. You are born into a game without a manual, thrown into a system that demands everything from you while offering no assurance of success. A system where survival is already a win, and anything beyond that feels like luck. Even when you try to escape the game through spirituality, rebellion, or raw ambition, the walls move. The ladder of success stretches infinitely upward, always just out of reach. The higher you climb, the more it resists. You chase joy, only to have it slip through your fingers like mist. You get a promotion, and then your rent goes up. You fall in love, and they leave. You save money, and an emergency wipes it all out. You start to believe in your own progress, only for life to remind you that you are not in control. And again, the pattern feels too intentional. You might call it bad luck, but what if it isn't luck at all? What if the simulation you're living in isn't just malfunctioning? What if it's doing exactly what it was made to do? What if the point isn't for you to win, but to believe you can? What if the true purpose is your struggle? And the worst part, you're not alone in this, but not in the way you think. Not everyone around you is real. Some are NPCs, non-playable characters, simulations within the simulation. They are echoes of humanity, shadows that walk and talk and smile, but lack the depth of a real inner life. They exist to shape your narrative. You see them succeed effortlessly, and it convinces you that you can too. You see them praised, promoted, adored, and you believe it's possible. But no matter how hard you try, the same doors never open for you, because you weren't programmed to reach them. You were designed to keep running, to keep chasing, to keep striving in the illusion of freedom, to keep hoping. It's a cruel masterpiece, a system so elegantly deceptive that even your resistance feeds it. The moment you rebel, you validate its power. The moment you fight back, it adjusts. The system always recalibrates, a perfect maze that responds to every move with new walls. The rich get richer, the corrupt remain protected, the powerful are untouchable. Even when they're caught, the consequences dissolve like smoke. The deck is stacked, and you weren't even dealt a hand. And yet, you're told to keep trying. That failure is just a stepping stone. That perseverance will pay off. That dreams come true for those who never give up. These are the lies coded into your prison. And here's the final twist. What happens when the simulation detects that you're catching on? It resets you. The system can't allow self-awareness to spread. You, the anomaly, must be deleted before you corrupt the code. Perhaps that's why people vanish. Not into thin air, but from the simulation itself. They were erased, and you feel it, don't you? That creeping suspicion when someone disappears quietly, a breakup with no closure, a friend who ghosts you without reason, a neighbor who one day is just gone. And what about déjà vu? Those strange moments when time folds and you feel like you've lived this exact second before. What if that's not coincidence, but a glitch? A fracture in the reset process. Evidence that this isn't your first time waking up to the truth? What if you realized this before? What if every time you get close, you're wiped clean and forced to start again? Reborn into the same loop, the same chase, the same failing program with a new face and a new name. And maybe, just maybe, this is that moment again. The moment of realization, the last stage of your cycle, and the most sinister thought of all. What if this realization isn't an escape, but the final trap? What if even your awareness has been programmed? What if the system allows you to question it because it knows you'll never get out? Because the moment you think you understand, it resets you. So now you're here, again, feeling like something's wrong, knowing you've been here before, unable to remember what came next, because someone, something, is watching, and it's almost time to press restart. Nothingness has a face word count, 1,000. Have you ever stared into a mirror for too long? At first it's ordinary, routine. You see the same face you've always known, the same skin, the same eyes, the same slight imperfections that have mapped themselves into your memory. It's familiar, reassuring even, because it grounds you. You know who you are. But keep looking, really looking. Hold your gaze a moment too long. Let the silence in the room stretch. Let your thoughts settle. And you'll notice something begin to shift. Your reflection, that image you trust to define your identity, starts to feel off. Slightly wrong, not broken, not grotesque, just wrong in a way that's hard to explain. Like your eyes are too focused, or the expression staring back at you isn't quite yours anymore. Your features start to drift from recognition into the uncanny. You know them, but they no longer feel like yours. It feels like something is staring back. And in that moment, a disturbing possibility creeps in. What if that isn't your reflection? What if it's not a mirror at all, but a window, a screen, a surface watching you, not reflecting you? What if the thing on the other side is mimicking you perfectly? Your every twitch, blink, movement. But it isn't you. You look closer, desperate to reassert familiarity. You move your head slightly. The reflection moves too. You raise an eyebrow. So does it. You smile, hoping to feel normal again. The mirror smiles, but the feeling doesn't go away, because deep down, something is wrong. You're not looking at a person anymore. You're looking at a mask, and the face it wears is yours. This is the face of nothingness, because when you strip everything away, every role, every memory, every illusion, what remains is not a person. What remains is emptiness, wearing your features like a disguise. This is the face that stares back when the noise dies down. It's not a monster. It's not a hallucination. It's not some ghostly figure hiding in the mirror. It's you. But not the you who goes to work or answers texts or remembers birthdays. Not the you that your friends see or your family loves. Not even the you inside your head narrating your life. Number this version is silent, watchful, detached. This version is the void pretending to be a self. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because here's the horrifying truth. Your sense of identity, yourself, is an illusion. A patchwork mask of memories, reactions, habits, and assumptions. You were handed a name. You were taught a language. You were shaped by rewards and punishments you didn't choose. Your personality, your beliefs, your opinions, all of it is just programming. And under all that code, nothing. A blank core, the illusion of continuity, of being the same you from childhood until now, is fragile You are not solid. You are not permanent. You are a story told moment by moment, and that story can end, change, or unravel at any time. Your body isn't even the same. Every cell had been replaced over the years. Your memories are faded and flawed. Your emotions are often involuntary. What part of that makes a consistent self? And yet, despite knowing this, you still cling to your face in the mirror. You still say I and pretend it means something. But the longer you look into that reflection, the more obvious it becomes. It's just a mask, a placeholder. Nothingness is what's real, and it is wearing you. But nothingness isn't static. It watches, it listens, it thinks, because the void is not simply the absence of being. It is the awareness of that absence. It is not a vacuum, but a presence that knows it's empty, a mirror with eyes, and those eyes are yours. So let's go deeper. You've spent your whole life believing in you, protecting you, defending you. But who exactly is this you? Where does it live? Can you find it, touch it? Strip away your name. That's not you. It was given to you. Strip away your memories. They're unreliable. They fade. They lie. Strip away your thoughts. You don't control them. They appear without permission. What's left? What are you? A whisper? A pattern? A narrative? Or maybe nothing at all. And if that's true, if you're truly nothing at your core, then what does that say about everyone else? What does that say about the world? About the people you love? The faces around you? They're masks too. Every smile you see, every conversation you have, every person you pass on the street, all of them. Elaborate costumes worn by the void. Empty containers pretending to be people. Fragile shells filled with programmed reactions and conditioned responses. All of them believing they are someone. All of them certain they are real. But at their center, the same thing as you. Nothing. And here's where the horror becomes unbearable. The nothingness isn't hiding. It's not buried. It's not locked away in some distant place. It's right here. It's wearing your face, speaking your thoughts, living your life. The void doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. It isn't invading you. It is you. And now that you've seen it, now that you've glimpsed the truth in that mirror, it's too late. The mask is cracking. The illusion is fading. The awareness is spreading. And when the mirror stares back, truly stares, you realize what it always was. Not a reflection, not even a lie, just a void learning to pretend. Because nothingness has a face, and somehow, impossibly, it's yours. Most of your life is already forgotten word count. 1,000. Try to remember yesterday, not the broad strokes, not I woke up or I had lunch. Try to recall the minute details, the things you thought about while brushing your teeth, the exact words you spoke during conversation, the shape of the clouds as you glanced out the window. You can't. Maybe you remember a flash, the taste of coffee, a line from a message, a moment of stress or comfort. But the rest? It's already gone, disintegrated into the dark water of time. The seconds, the minutes, the small invisible threads that wove yesterday into something real. Erased. Now go back further. Last week, last month, last year. Try to reconstruct a random Tuesday afternoon from 5 years ago. What were you doing? What did you feel? What did you think? The silence in your mind is the answer. It's not that those moments didn't happen. They did. They were real. They filled time. They shaped your path. But they vanished, unnoticed. Your memory has discarded them. not filed them away or gently misplaced them, but erased them, burned them from existence as if they never mattered at all. This is the quiet horror of being human. Your life is disappearing while you live it. You've already forgotten most of it. Entire years of your childhood, gone. All the laughter, all the tears, all the hours spent waiting for something or someone. They may have felt eternal at the time, but now they're barely fragments, faded images, fuzzy outlines of people who may no longer exist. Your mind is not a faithful archive. It is a selective editor, a censor, a storyteller that deletes chapters without asking. And it does this not out of cruelty, but necessity. There is too much, too many moments, too much input. You cannot carry the weight of it all. So it filters, it reduces, it discards. But what does that mean for you? What does it mean when 90% of your lived experience has vanished? Are you still the same person you were back then, if you cannot recall who that person was? Think of how memory defines identity. You are who you are because you remember being that person. You remember falling in love, failing a test, losing someone, making a choice. But what if those memories are gone? What if the scaffolding of your past has rotted away, leaving nothing but vague impressions? Then who are you now? Worse still, what if the memories you do have are wrong? Because science tells us something terrifying. Memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you recall an event, you rewrite it. You color it with current emotion, belief, bias. You don't remember what happened. You remember the last time you remembered it. Your memories are stories about stories. You are building a self on sand. That moment you're so sure shaped you. It might not have happened the way you think. The conversation that broke your heart. It may be distorted. The face you see in a dream, the smell that triggers sadness. There may be false combinations of past fragments, stitched together by your brain to fill the void. So not only is most of your life forgotten, what remains may be fiction. You are a ghost walking through a house you once lived in, trying to remember what each room meant, only to realize the furniture has changed, the paint is different, and maybe you never even lived there at all. And then, of course, there's the present. It's fading too. Even now, as you read this sentence, the version of you that read the previous one is already gone. A moment ago, you were slightly different, positioned differently in your chair, with a slightly different emotion, thought, breath. And now that version has passed into the void. You are constantly dying in tiny increments. You live only in the narrow slice of now, a single flickering frame in an endless reel of vanishing time. And even that frame is unstable, because as soon as you focus on it, it's gone. And so, what are you really? A collection of scattered, fading memories, an incomplete story built from unreliable narration, a brief flicker of awareness between two oceans of forgetfulness. You live, you feel, you love, and then it all disappears. Even the people you've loved. Where are they now in your mind? Can you remember the exact sound of their voice, the way they blinked when nervous, the weight of their presence? Or has time blurred them too? And if they're fading, what does that mean for you? Because one day someone will try to remember you, and they won't be able to. They'll squint at a photograph and forget your name. They'll struggle to recall the sound of your laugh, the shape of your hands, the exact shade of your eyes. They'll move on, and the memories of you, the last threads of your existence, will vanish. There is a final death that comes after the body body stops breathing. It is the moment when you are no longer remembered, when no one on earth holds your image in their mind. No one speaks your name, no one thinks of you at all. You will vanish from history. You will be as if you never were. And so, we must ask the cruelest question. If a life is forgotten, did it really happen? If you loved, laughed, suffered, dreamed, but no one remembers, not even you, what was the point? If your memories lie, and your present slips away, and your future ends in silence, then who are you? Maybe no one. Maybe you're just the echo of something that never left a mark. A flicker in the dark. Last time, think of your word. Count. 1,000. There will come a moment, silent, invisible, and unrecorded, when someone thinks of you for the very last time. It won't be announced. There will be no warning. It might happen in the middle of an ordinary day. Maybe someone will glance at an old photo, hear a song you once loved, or drive past a place you used to go. And in that fragile instant, you will surface in their mind, faint, like the outline of a dream. And then you will vanish, and they won't know it was the last time. No one ever does. This is the final erasure. Not death, but disappearance. The moment your name, your voice, your story slip from the minds of the living and fall into a silence that never ends. Think of everyone you've ever encountered. The people who shaped you, challenged you, comforted you. Your parents, your teachers, your friends. The stranger who smiled at you on the train. The child who waved from across the street. All those minds where you lived, however briefly. Now imagine them one by one. Forgetting. Some quickly, some slowly. Some not at all, until they die. And take your memory with them. This is the real vanishing. A fading that begins while you are still alive. You are being forgotten already. There are people you used to speak to daily, whose lives once overlapped with yours, who now struggle to recall your name. There are inboxes where your last message was never answered. There are photos you're still in, but no one tags you anymore. There are stories you were part of that are told now without your name, or with it misremembered. Time is not cruel. It is indifferent, and it erases with quiet efficiency. The truth is, even now, you are a memory in the process of being undone. One day, someone will pull open a drawer and find a note you wrote. They might pause, smile, frown, then toss it away. The paper was real, the words were yours, but the feeling that once lived in them, gone. One day, someone will hear your name and pause. Who was that again? And no one will know. One day, even the people who loved you most will forget, not out of malice, out of time. And the terrifying part, you've already done this to others. There are people you once knew, classmates, neighbors, co-workers, who are fading in your mind right now. You may still remember their names or fragments of their faces, but the details are blurring. You cannot remember their voice, their laugh, their habits. Soon you will forget them completely, and they will disappear, not just from your life, but from existence itself. Because if no one remembers you, did you ever really exist? Even the greatest among us face this truth. History books are filled with names, kings, revolutionaries, scientists, saints. But those are just names, the people behind them, their real lives, their thoughts, their fears, their private joys and sorrows, all lost. Time has flattened them into dates and quotes. You will not be spared what emperors and poets could not escape. You will be forgotten. Yes, there may be photos, emails, texts, maybe even videos or writings, But those are not you. They are artifacts, echoes, and one day they too will decay. Files will corrupt, passwords will be lost, servers will shut down, the cloud will evaporate, and when that happens, even the record of your existence will vanish. Imagine a photograph. It sits in a box, curled and yellowing. It shows a face, yours, smiling. But no one knows who that person is. No one knows your story. No one knows what made you cry, what made you laugh, what you dreamed of in the quiet hours. And then, one day, someone throws it away, and that's it. You are gone. Think again of someone you knew once, long ago, whose name is fading. You remember they were kind, or angry, or shy, but you don't remember much more. You try to summon their face, but it slips away. You try to remember a conversation, but it's blank. That is what will happen to you. At first, people will tell stories. They'll say, "Remember when they did this?" Or, "They used to love that song." But slowly, those stories will stop. Life will move on. New memories will push out the old. The edges will blur. And one day, someone will hesitate when trying to speak your name, and then choose not to speak it at all. And the moment they move on, that is when you truly vanish. Your final moment is in your death. It's the last time someone thinks of you. And then, you are a ripple swallowed by the sea. This is the fate we all share. We love, we live, we try to matter. But time stretches endlessly forward, and memory dissolves into the current. Eventually, we are all swallowed by the same silence, and the universe does not notice. So the question remains, if your entire life, everything you were, everything you are, can disappear so completely, did it ever really happen? Were you ever really here? Or were you just a brief flicker in someone else's story? And now, not even that. No control over thoughts, word count. 1,000, think of a number, any number. Now pause and ask yourself, why that number? Why not another? You might say, I picked it because it felt right, or I just chose it randomly. But did you really choose it? Or did it simply appear uninvited, unchosen, unstoppable, like a whisper from a place inside you that you don't control? Try again. Think of a word, any word at all. Perhaps it's window, or regret, or forest. You may feel like you made a decision, like you reached into your internal vocabulary and selected a word. But if you look closely, it wasn't a decision. It was an arrival. The word surfaced, like a bubble from the depths of your mind. You didn't build it. You witnessed it. And now here's the truth, the one you've always sensed but never wanted to admit. You do not control your thoughts. They arise. They push in. They sneak up behind your awareness and plant themselves in the front of your mind before you have time to ask why. You don't generate thoughts like a writer creates stories. You observe them like a reader turning pages. They show up without asking. They echo without permission. And sometimes they terrify you. Try now to not think. Clear your mind. 10 seconds. Just silence. No words, no images, no inner monologue. Just nothing. You can't. Even as you try to stop, a thought appears. I'm doing it. Or this is hard. Or don't think. And that last one is still a thought. Even your effort to resist becomes another item in the stream. You cannot turn off the mind. Not through will, not through effort. Because you are not driving the car. You are strapped into the passenger seat of your own consciousness. And it's moving whether you like it or not. Now try something darker. Think of a painful memory. One you've buried. Something that hurt. Something you regret. An embarrassment. a betrayal, a grief you never fully unpacked. There it is, surfacing again. You didn't want to think about it. You didn't ask for it. But the moment it was named, it bloomed. Your chest tightened. Your breath caught. Your skin remembered what your heart tried to forget. And now, try to forget it. Try to erase it right now. You can't. This is the cruelty of the mind. It does not ask what you want. It does not obey your commands. It drags you through memory and fantasy, joy and horror, without consulting the person inside. And if you were truly in control, if you really commanded your own mind, wouldn't you already be free of your fears? Wouldn't you have banished every insecurity, every obsession, every thought that wakes you up at 2 a.m.? You'd think only of what calms you. You'd forget every face that ever hurt you. You'd delete the images that haunt your sleep. But you can't, because your mind doesn't work that way. You don't own your thoughts, you endure them. And now we reach the most disturbing layer of all. Sometimes the mind generates things that horrify you. A violent image, a strange impulse, a cruel thought, and you recoil, not just from the idea, but from the fact that it came from you. But did it? You didn't ask for it. You didn't plan it. You didn't construct it. It simply appeared. And now you have to live with it, manage it, question what it says about you. But maybe it doesn't say anything about you at all. Maybe the thoughts are not yours. Maybe you are not even what you think you are. Try to predict your next thought. Go ahead. Say to yourself, in 3 seconds, I will think of, and then wait. Whatever appears, that's your thought. But did you choose it? Or did you just witness its arrival? If you don't control your thoughts, then what is the self? Is it just the echo chamber where thoughts happen? A witness? A temporary flicker? A ripple? Maybe that's all we are. Patterns of perception, bundles of memory, streams of mental noise held together by a body we didn't ask for and a name we didn't choose. We think, and so we believe we exist. But perhaps it's more accurate to say, we are thought, not the thinker, just the thinking, the ongoing mental monologue that mistakes itself for a person, a film reel that assumes it is the director. You are never steering. You are never designing this life from within. You are watching the unfolding of something far deeper, far older, far less under your control. And when the thoughts stop, so do you. The moment the narration ends, the moment the stream dries up, that's it. There's no backup you behind the curtain. No secret captain waiting to take the wheel. Just the silence. And maybe you felt it in those rare moments of stillness, on the edge of sleep, or standing at the edge of a cliff, or watching waves roll in, when for a brief breath the thoughts fall away and something stares back, not peace, not enlightenment, just the quiet. And it is not comforting, because in that quiet you sense what's been true all along. You are not thinking your thoughts, you're listening. And sometimes what you hear is beautiful, and sometimes it is unbearable. But always it is you, because when the thoughts stop, so will everything you've ever known as self. So will your name, your memories, your voice, because you are not the one thinking. You are what happens when the thought is allowed to happen. And when it ceases, you do too. Thinking is listening word count. 1,000 close your eyes. Listen, not to the sounds outside, not the hum of the room, not the distant traffic or the faint breath in your throat. Listen to the voice inside. It's speaking. It always is. a whisper that sounds like you, a constant narration unrolling in the background. Thoughts, fragments, questions, memories. It never stops. It never tires. It simply goes on and on and on. You think that voice is yours. You're in a monologue, your own mind speaking in private. It sounds familiar. It even feels like something you're in control of. But pause. Really pause. And ask the question. If the voice is yours, then why can't you silence it? Try. Try to stop thinking right now. 10 seconds of silence. Absolute stillness inside your mind. What happened? You failed. Everyone does. Because thoughts do not obey. They appear, uninvited, unchosen. They echo without warning. You don't assemble them like words on a page. They arrive whole, fully formed, already complete before you even realize they're there. You don't think your thoughts, you hear them. And if that's true, if your consciousness is not creating thoughts but receiving them, then what are you? Are you the thinker or the listener? Now consider music. You don't make it happen. Not if you're listening. It unfolds note by note. You receive it. You feel it. The melody carries you. You don't steer it. What if your thoughts are the same? What if they are not authored, only heard? What if your mind is not a command center, but a radio, tuned to a channel that never stops broadcasting? You think you're in control, that you create your thoughts, that you decide what to focus on, what to say, what to believe. But then, why can't you stop? Why, when you try to clear your mind, do words still slip through the cracks? Why do memories surface when you didn't ask for them? Why does an old conversation replay in your mind at 3 a.m. like a broken tape on loop? Why do you rehearse arguments that never happened, or fear futures that may never come? Why, when you want peace, does your mind give you noise? Because you are not the speaker. You are the audience. You've never been in control. Have you ever noticed how your thoughts have a voice? Not just words, but tone, pitch, rhythm. Maybe it sounds like you. Maybe it sounds like someone else. A parent, a teacher, a lover, a bully, a ghost. Sometimes the voice doesn't even feel familiar. It just speaks, and you listen. You respond to it, believe it, react to it, without questioning where it came from, as if the mere fact that it appeared means it belongs to you. But what if it doesn't? What if the voice in your head isn't you? If you were truly the thinker, you'd create each word with intention. You'd sculpt your thoughts like a potter shapes clay. But instead, you receive them like raindrops on skin, sudden, countless, unstoppable. A phrase forms, a sentence builds, a memory intrudes, and the more you try to resist, the more you try to silence it, the louder it gets. You've experienced this, the endless churn of thought when you lie in bed, the spiral of overthinking, the rehearsed apologies, the imagined confrontations, the voice running laps inside your skull while your body lies still. It narrates your fears, it invents problems, it relives pain, and it does so without permission. Not once do you say, "Now I will obsess." It just happens. So who is speaking? Some say it's the subconscious, the part of your mind shaped by memory, culture, language. A patchwork voice made from every word you've heard, every feeling you've absorbed. A ghost composed of everything you've ever been told. Others believe it's the collective unconscious, the inherited voice of the species echoing across time. But what if it's something else? What if it's not internal at all? What if the voice is coming from somewhere, or something outside? What if your thoughts are being fed to you, not randomly, but deliberately, as if someone or something is watching, testing, injecting ideas into your mind to see what you'll do. What if your thoughts are not the product of free will, but programming? What if you're just a vessel, a character following a script, unaware that the lines have already been written? It would explain so much. The intrusive thoughts that make no sense, the sudden impulses, the fears that don't belong to you. And then there's the most disturbing possibility of all. What if the voice stops? What if one morning you wake up and it's gone? No inner commentary, no thoughts, no words, no identity. Just a vast, silent void where your mind used to be. How long would it take for you to notice? A minute? An hour? Would you even know who you were without the voice reminding you? Without the stream of thought holding your sense of self together? Because that's what it does. It narrates your life. It tells you who you are. It keeps the illusion intact. You don't remember every moment, just the ones the voice tells you to. You don't question reality, because the voice makes it sound normal. But what if the voice isn't yours? What if it never was? What if it's been speaking through you, not as you? And now, perhaps for the first time, it is listening back, waiting, wondering if you've begun to hear the truth. Because thinking isn't creating, it's receiving. You are not the author of your mind. You are the audience. And someone else has been speaking this entire time. You're the story word count. 1,000. Who are you? Don't answer too quickly. Whatever comes to mind, your name, your job, your memories, your face in the mirror, pause and question it. Because that answer isn't who you are. It's a story, a carefully assembled narrative, a fragile construction of facts, impressions and feelings bound together by habit and hope. You are not a fixed thing. You are a moving target, a character in a story you didn't even know you were writing. Look at yourself, what you believe, what you value, what you avoid. All of it is part of the tale you've been telling yourself since you were old enough to understand language. That you are kind or broken or smart or unlucky. That you are someone worth knowing or someone beyond repair. That you have a purpose or that you are lost. Every identity is a script. And you've been repeating it for so long that you've started to believe it's truth. But is it? Let's break it apart. The you who exists right now, the one reading these words, is shaped by layers of memory, childhood moments, adolescent confusion, tiny embarrassments and triumphs you think defined you. But how many of those are real? And how many are distorted memories, polished or poisoned by time? You remember what you need to remember to keep the narrative going. Not everything, just enough to make it feel cohesive. Your regrets, you carry them like anchors, convinced they make you deeper. Your achievements, you arrange them like trophies on a mental shelf to reassure yourself that you've done something right. But none of this is stable. It changes all the time. Your identity shifts from year to year. The person you were 5 years ago might not even recognize the person you are today. You look back and cringe at your past self, or long for them, or wonder how you became who you are now. And tomorrow, you'll do it again. You are not a person. You are a process. A novel still being written and revised as you go. The brain doesn't like contradictions, so when you act in ways that don't match your story, it edits them out. It erases evidence that doesn't support the plot, or rewrites events to make them fit. You lie to yourself, not maliciously, but instinctively, because coherence is more comfortable than truth. If your story is I'm a failure, then you'll ignore every success. If your story is I always figure it out, then you'll downplay every panic. Your narrative controls your perception. You don't see life as it is. You see it as the story you're telling yourself requires it to be. But what if the story is wrong? What if you're not who you think you are? What if your identity is just scaffolding built over nothing? What if all of this, your dreams, your fears, your style, your flaws, are just plot devices keeping the illusion going? Imagine waking up with no memories, no past, no name, just the present moment and a body that doesn't feel like yours. Would you still be you? Or would you just be a stranger with no backstory? Because here's the truth. The only reason you feel real is because the voice in your head keeps reading the script. The only reason you know who you are is because you keep telling yourself. And if the voice stopped, if the narrative dissolved, you would vanish, not physically, not immediately, but mentally, psychologically, existentially. You would drift, without identity, without direction, without the anchor of self, because you are not real in the way you think you are. You are a fiction, and you're rewriting yourself constantly, even now. Every thought, every word you read, every shift in belief, you're updating the plot, redrafting the outline. You think you're consistent, but you're not. You're dynamic, reactive. Your mind is a river, not a statue. And that's terrifying, because if you are only the story you tell yourself, what happens when the story falls apart? What happens when the protagonist fails? What happens when the plot doesn't make sense anymore? What happens when the narrative ends? Or worse, what if it never really began? What if there was no central character, only narration? What if the you think exists is just a collection of themes and metaphors spoken in a familiar voice, given shape by memory and emotion, but never truly there? And then there's the worst question of all. What if someone else wrote your story? What if the voice in your head is just a loop of things you were told? You're too much. You're not enough. You're smart. You'll never make it. What if your story is shaped by strangers, and you've been playing a role ever since, trying to live up to a script that was never yours, and now, deep down, you're beginning to wonder, who would you be without the story, without the history, without the role, without the voice? Who are you when the narration stops? The answer is terrifying in its simplicity. No one. You are the story, and without it, you're just silence. Time is illusion word count. 1,000 time feels solid. You wake up, the clock ticks forward, and you believe you're moving through something real. You watch the day pass, morning, noon, night, and assume you've crossed some invisible bridge, that there's a path behind you and one ahead, that the past is gone, the present is now, and the future is waiting just around the corner. But what if that's not how time works at all? What if time is not a river you float down, but a cage you're trapped inside? Think about dreams. You fall asleep and live an entire life, months, years, entire emotional arcs, in the space of minutes. You wake up, look at the clock, and see that only 8 minutes have passed. Yet in your mind, entire lifetimes occurred. Your body was still. Time didn't move, but your experience did. Now think about waiting, staring at a wall, sitting in traffic, counting seconds. Time slows, it stretches. 1 minute feels like 10, or laughter, passion, a moment of deep connection. Time collapses, An hour feels like 5 minutes. So which is real, the clock or your perception? You want to believe time is constant, that seconds are fixed, that the past is behind you like footprints, and the future is coming like a train on a track. But this isn't how your mind experiences time. It warps, bends, breaks. And maybe it was never linear to begin with. Ask yourself, where is the past? Not metaphorically, literally. Where is it? Can you go there, touch it? Is it stored somewhere, waiting for you? Number. The past lives only in memory, and memory's flawed. It's rewritten every time you recall it. It's not a file, it's a painting, smeared with every brushstroke of emotion and bias. So the past isn't real, not as you think it is. It's a mental echo. And the future, you imagine it, you plan for it, you fear it, but it never truly arrives. When it does, it's not the future anymore. It's the present, which immediately slips into the past. You never actually experience the future. You only experience a looping now that changes its outfit. So what does that leave? The present, that fragile sliver you try to hold on to? It's already gone. By the time you name it, it's past. By the time you savor it, it's memory. The now is not a place. It's a flicker, a glitch, a heartbeat that dies the moment it's born. And here's the terrifying implication. If the past is gone, if the future is a concept, and if the present is ungraspable, then what is time? Maybe it's not flowing forward. Maybe it's not flowing at all. Maybe you're not moving through time. Maybe you're frozen in one eternal frame, and only your perception is changing. Picture a film reel. Each frame is static, still, nothing moves. But when the frames are shown in sequence, they create the illusion of motion. That's you, your life, your thoughts, your memories. Each moment is a still image, but consciousness flips through them so fast it feels like movement. It feels like progress. But what if the frames have already been set? What if every decision, every breath, every heartbreak and breakthrough was already baked into the reel? What if you're not writing your future, but watching it unfold exactly as it must? If that's true, then you have no free will. Not really. You think you're choosing, but you're not. You're discovering. You're remembering a story you never wrote. So even your freedom is an illusion. And maybe that's why déjà vu feels so strange. Not because you've been here before, but because you always were here. Because that moment, that breath, that blink was always going to happen. And some part of you remembers. Maybe you've lived your life 1,000 times already. Not metaphorically, literally. Maybe this very moment has played out before and will again, exactly as it just did. Again and again and again. And now ask yourself, how would you know? If time is looping, if you're reliving the same story over and over, how would you notice? You wouldn't. Because every memory would reset. Every illusion would reboot. You'd forget that you've forgotten. You'd wake up each day thinking it's new. But it's not. It's the same scene, on the same reel, running one more time. And here's the final blow. If time is already laid out, if you're not moving through it, but just perceiving pieces of it, then nothing you do can change anything. You are not becoming. You are being. Right now, you think you're making choices, reading this, thinking about it, reacting. But this moment was always going to happen. You're always going to be here, in this room, with this breath, reading these words, feeling this emotion. It was not possibility. It was certainty. So if time is not flowing, if it's fixed, then what are you? a memory, a flicker, a ghost caught in an infinite loop. You believed you were alive, but maybe you're just moving through the illusion of time, and maybe time itself isn't real. Maybe it's the greatest illusion of all. Time is eating itself. Word count, 1,000. You think time moves forward. You imagine it like a straight line. One you walk along step by step, leaving behind the past and heading toward the future. But that's just a story, a metaphor designed to comfort minds that can't bear the truth. Because time isn't a line, it's a mouth, and it's swallowing everything. Right now, a second just passed, gone, not filed away in some cosmic archive, not gently laid to rest in memory, erased, consumed by the very force that created it. That's what time does. It doesn't store the past. It devours it. It doesn't guide you gently forward. It chews through your life moment by moment, second by second, until nothing remains but the illusion of continuity. Think of the clock on your wall. The second hand ticks forward, steady and dependable. You trust it. You live by it. But you never stop to wonder, where do those seconds go? You hear the tick, but the moment it ends, that second is gone. Not behind you, not somewhere safe. It's been eaten. That tick was the death of a moment, and now it no longer exists. You can remember it. Maybe, for now. But memory is not the moment. It's a faded photograph of something that no longer is. Time doesn't preserve anything. It destroys. It doesn't leave footprints. It leaves nothing. And that means everything you've ever done, every joy, every love, every breath is already gone. Not hidden, not stored, obliterated. This moment, the one you are experiencing right now, reading, blinking, breathing, it's already disappearing. As your eyes move from one word to the next, the previous one dies. Each thought you form is already decomposing as the next one emerges. You are a being made of vanishing. So much so that the very act of living is an act of being erased. And here's where it gets worse. You assume that you're moving forward, that you're making progress, heading toward a future that's waiting for you. But what if you're not moving at all? What if time is? What if it's not you walking through time, but time rushing past you, devouring everything in its path? What if you are not the traveler, but the terrain being consumed? Time is not your companion. It's your predator. It doesn't watch you age. It causes it. It doesn't record your story. It eats it page by page. The past isn't behind you. It's nowhere, because it's been consumed. And the future? It's not ahead of you. It's just the next course. Because time is always hungry. And you are always on the menu. Every second that passes is another piece of you gone forever. The laughter of your childhood. The smell of someone you loved. The moment you first felt joy, fear, betrayal. The way your hands looked when you were younger. The sound of your voice before it cracked. Gone. Not floating in space. Not resting in some spiritual archive. Gone. And worse, you don't even notice. You live like time is your ally. You plan. You dream. You save. But time doesn't care. It isn't waiting for you. It isn't helping you. It is dismantling you. And one day it will finish. It will devour your last breath, your last thought, your last heartbeat. And then you'll be gone. But not in the way you think. You won't be remembered. Not forever. You won't be preserved in some crystal vault of legacy. You'll vanish entirely. Because time doesn't just eat the present. It eats memory too. Ask yourself, How many versions of you have already died? How many past selves, the ones with different dreams, fears, identities, have been swallowed by the years? And how many more will vanish before the end? And when the final version of you, the one who reads this, the one you are now, is devoured, what will be left? What will remain? Nothing. Because if time is eating itself, if every moment is not just passing but being erased, then reality is not a sequence of events. It's a disappearing act, and you are the magician's assistant, unaware that the trick is real. You believe in continuity. You believe you're the same person from one moment to the next. But what if you're not? What if continuity is a hallucination? A side effect of memory pretending to be permanence? What if you are just a series of briefly lit candles, each one dying before the next is lit? And what if there's no one lighting them at all? Just a fire consuming everything in order, not just events, but meaning, identity, truth. Time doesn't preserve. Time doesn't forgive. Time only consumes. You're not standing in the middle of a timeline. You're trapped in the stomach of something ancient and endless, being digested second by second, and you'll never escape, because even the thought of escape is already gone. It was consumed the moment you formed it. So ask yourself now, in this final flickering breath of awareness, if time is erasing you as fast as you exist. Were you ever really here? Or have you already been devoured? The fine-tuning of the universe word count, 1000. Imagine a universe where gravity is just a little weaker, not by much, just a fraction, so small a change that you wouldn't notice it in your daily life. But this microscopic difference has massive consequences. In that universe, stars never form. Galaxies never swirl into being. Matter spreads too thin. The sky is eternally black, a silent void with no light, no planets, no warmth. Nothing. Now flip it. Imagine a universe where gravity is just a bit stronger. Again, not by much, but enough. Enough that everything collapses before it has a chance to grow. Matter clumps too quickly. Stars ignite and burn out in an instant. Or worse, everything collapses into black holes. Reality becomes a graveyard of implosions. No structure, no chemistry, no time for complexity to emerge, no possibility of life, no possibility of you. And yet, here you are, alive, thinking, conscious. Why? Why this universe? The cosmos you inhabit is balanced on a knife's edge. A single breath in the wrong direction, and existence would crumble. The constants of reality, the strength of gravity, the mass of particles, the force that holds atoms together, are not arbitrary. They are precise. So precise that a change in even one, by a single part in a trillion, would destroy the possibility of everything you know. If the electron weighed a little more, atoms wouldn't form. If the nuclear force was slightly weaker, stars couldn't burn. If the expansion rate of the universe were a touch faster, galaxies wouldn't hold together. And yet, all of it is tuned perfectly. Not almost, not approximately. Perfectly. So perfect, in fact, that the odds of this happening by chance are astronomically close to zero. It's like rolling a trillion-sided die and landing exactly on the one number that creates a functioning universe. Not once, but every time. And still, it happened. So how? There are only a few possibilities. Option 1, coincidence. Maybe it's all random. Maybe we just got lucky. But how much luck can you believe in before it starts sounding like a lie? Would you believe a deck shuffled itself into a perfect order? Would you believe a hurricane blew through a junkyard and built a jet engine? The human mind resists pure chance, not because it's impossible, but because it feels like an insult to intelligence. Option 2, design. Perhaps there is a designer, a consciousness, something or someone that fine-tuned the dials of reality like a musician tuning an instrument. Not necessarily a god in robes, but a force, a presence, something outside the simulation, setting the rules from the other side of the glass. But then, who designed the designer? And why build such a cold, vast, and hostile universe, only to place fragile minds inside it? If we were created, why here? Why in a place where most of existence is lethal? Why in a world where survival is agony and awareness is suffering? Option 3, the multiverse. Maybe this isn't the only universe. Maybe there are infinite others. If enough realities exist, endless combinations of physical laws, constants, and conditions, then somewhere, by sheer probability, one of them had to land just right. One of them had to win the impossible cosmic lottery. Maybe this is that universe. And if that's true, then most other universes are not like this. Most are dead, silent, stillborn. Oceans of nothingness, where the dice rolled the wrong way, where physics snapped in half, where light never emerged. But then comes a chilling realization. If the multiverse is real, then most conscious beings wouldn't exist in comfortable, stable realities like ours. They'd exist on the edge, in universes teetering on collapse, realities where existence is barely sustainable, where the laws of nature are violent and unstable, where consciousness flickers like a dying light. So why don't we feel that? Why does this universe feel survivable? Maybe we're just in the calm before the storm. Maybe the stability we perceive is a mirage, a brief moment before collapse, a false sense of safety in a universe that's slowly unraveling. The fine-tuning then isn't evidence of perfection, it's the tension before destruction. Maybe we're standing in the brief pause between the match and the fire, the illusion of balance, right before the universe remembers what it's supposed to be. Empty, dead, lifeless, a mistake that's about to correct itself. So take a moment to reflect. You are alive in a universe that shouldn't exist, balanced on numbers that should have failed, walking on the edge of a knife so sharp it could split reality in half. And the only thing keeping you here is that the universe hasn't noticed you yet. Not yet, but one day, it might. And when it does, you'll finally understand how rare this moment truly was, right before it's gone. Eternal recurrence. Word count. 1,000. You wake up. The morning light spills through the curtains exactly as it always has. There's a strange heaviness in your body, the same dull ache in your muscles, the same pause before you swing your legs off the bed. You reach for your phone. The date, the weather, the notifications, all perfectly, eerily familiar. You brush your teeth, eat the same breakfast, walk the same path to the same place. It all feels routine, but there's a quiet tension beneath it, like déjà vu, but deeper. It's not a flicker, it's a presence, a slow realization, growing louder with every repeated motion. You've done this before, not yesterday, not last week, forever. The itch deepens, the memory that isn't a memory, the knowledge that doesn't arrive through facts but through sensation. You know this has all happened already. You know what's next, the words someone will say, the mistake you'll make, the regret you'll carry, You've walked this hallway before. You've laughed at that joke. You've watched that moment of beauty pass and known somehow that it will return again. Because it already has, over and over. This is eternal recurrence. The idea that time does not move forward in a line, but curves. That the universe doesn't end in a collapse or begin in a bang. It spins, it loops, it returns. And you return with it. Not metaphorically, literally. Everything you are, your breath, your memories, your pain, your joy, has happened before, and it will happen again. Infinite times, exactly the same. Every tear, every smile, every death, every birth, all of it, on repeat, forever. It sounds absurd, at first, because how could something so complicated, so impossibly precise, play out the same way again? But think of it like this. If the universe is finite and time is infinite, then every possible arrangement of matter must eventually repeat. Not just similar events, the exact ones. You, reading this in this moment, with this breath, it's already happened, and it will happen again. Nietzsche didn't offer eternal recurrence as a theory. He offered it as a test, a question to pierce your soul. If you had to live this life exactly as it is, over and over, for eternity, would you? Not a better version. Not a life with fewer mistakes or more success. This life, with all its imperfections, its boredom, its pain. Would you say yes? Or would you scream? Because if the answer is no, if you wouldn't live it again, then what does that say about how you're living now? You may think, but I don't remember any past lives. So what? Memory isn't required for recurrence. You don't remember most of your current life. You've already forgotten the majority of your days. That doesn't mean they didn't happen. That doesn't mean they won't return. You don't need to recall the repetition to be bound by it. You are here, now again. And the worst part? There is no way out. You cannot undo what has been done. You cannot escape what will be repeated. You can change your mind, but not the outcome. You can make new plans, but the path is already carved. You are not moving forward. You are orbiting, not in space, in time, in fate. And the loop does not care if you understand it. It does not slow down for your awakening. It simply spins and spins and spins. So what do? What does it mean to know that everything you do will be done again? Does it make your choices heavier or weightless? Does it make your mistakes unforgivable or irrelevant? Does it give your life meaning or rob it of all purpose? You search for escape, but there is none. There is only return. Even now, the thought might be blooming in your mind. Haven't I read this before? That whisper at the back of your awareness, the chill that climbs your spine. I've felt this exact moment before. Maybe you have. Maybe this moment is one of the infinite repetitions. And if you're feeling this realization now, maybe you felt it before too. And maybe you'll feel it again, 1,000 lifetimes from now, sitting in the same position, reading the same words, thinking the same thought, realizing again that you are trapped forever. Because the loop doesn't stop. It doesn't care if you suffer. It doesn't care if you hope. It doesn't care if you understand. It just continues. And you, like a character in a play with no final act, are destined to walk the same stage over and over, without ever remembering the curtain call, unless you find a way to make peace with it, to accept the loop, to look at your life in all its mess and monotony and magnificence, and say, yes, I would live this again. Because maybe that's the only victory left in an infinite cycle. Not escape, not transcendence, but embrace. To live each moment as if it matters, even if you know it's already happened, especially because it has. Solipsism word count, 1,000. There is only one consciousness in the universe, yours. That's the premise. Not shared awareness, not a collective soul, not billions of separate minds lighting up like fireflies in the dark. Just you, everyone else, everything else. A simulation, a dream, a projection inside the solitary theatre of your mind. Not real, not conscious, not alive in any sense you can prove. It sounds arrogant, delusional. But think for a moment. Not emotionally, but honestly. What do you really know to be true? You experience yourself. That's it. You hear thoughts in your head. You feel sensations in your body. You watch the world unfold around you like a movie you didn't choose, but that somehow knows exactly how to keep you watching. But everything outside of you, you don't experience it directly. You experience signals, interpretations, sounds, colors, words, all filtered through your mind. You've never been inside anyone else's head. You've never felt their thoughts. You've never lived their experience. So how do you know they're real? You see people smile, cry, speak, suffer. But what if that's just what your mind has generated to keep you company? What if all the love you've received, all the pain you've witnessed, all the complexity of the outside world is just an elaborate puppet show, with you as the only observer? This is the idea of solipsism, the belief or fear that only your mind truly exists, that all of reality is a projection, a stage set just for you, a game where you're the only real player and everyone else is either an illusion or a function of your own psychology. At first, it feels like a thought experiment, a mental trick, something to be amused by then tossed aside. But the longer you sit with it, the colder it becomes, because it means something terrible. You are alone. Utterly, absolutely alone. The people you love, imagined. The strangers in traffic, fabricated. The voice you're hearing right now, just you talking to yourself. There's no way to disprove it. That's the horror. Every piece of evidence that others are real, every text, every touch, every tear, could just be part of the simulation. And the simulation is flawless. So perfect that it mimics reality with such precision that you never question it. Until you do. And then you begin to see the cracks. How do you know that anyone keeps existing when they leave the room? How do you know that the stars in the sky don't vanish the second you look away? How do you know that history wasn't generated in the moment you learned it? What if everything, every war, every nation, every childhood memory was generated at the exact moment it needed to be? What if none of this existed until your mind imagined it? If you can't prove the world existed before you were born, then maybe it didn't. You think, but I feel connection. I feel empathy. I feel others. But those are feelings inside you, not proof of others. You could feel all of those things while dreaming too. And you have. You've dreamed of people who felt as real as waking life. You've argued with them, loved them, lost them, and none of them existed. And you didn't realize it until you woke up. So, what if you never wake up? What if this is the dream? What if your entire life, every street corner, every sunrise, every passing face, is the hallucination your mind constructed to escape a deeper loneliness? What if the world is a coping mechanism? What if your mind, faced with unbearable solitude, split itself into characters and storylines just to survive? It would explain everything. The way you always feel slightly separate from the world, the way conversations feel scripted, the way people behave in ways that seem oddly designed to trigger your growth, your pain, your awakening. It would explain why the world often feels like it's happening for you, or against you, because maybe it is, because maybe you are the universe, the only observer, and everything else is scenery. And if that's true, then what are you? If there is no one else, no society, no earth, no galaxies, then you are not a person in the world. You are the dreamer and the dream. But then comes the darkest thought of all. If all of this is fake, if everything you've ever known is just your own mind, then why was it made this way? Why loneliness? Why suffering? Why love only to lose it? Why fear? Why memory? Why you? What are you running from? What horror did you once witness that made your mind fracture into this illusion? What emptiness did you fall into, so deep and endless that your only choice was to pretend the world existed? And why can't you stop? Why can't you wake up? You might think, but that's too sad to be true. But sadness doesn't make something false. If anything, the more unbearable the idea, the more likely it is that we hide it behind comforting lies. So here you are, trapped in a world that may only exist inside your skull, talking to yourself, trying to forget the truth you already suspect, that you have always been alone, that you will always be alone, and that everything else, every face, every hug, every voice, was just a kindness your mind offered itself until it's ready to see the truth again. Your soul is a black hole's echo word count,